All right, if you're swimming in a sea of red ink right now, we're going to try and help you get out there with the next round of the NCAA tournament. But I have to start with this. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, going to be joined here by Scotty M. In just a few moments. Scotty unable to be with us last week, so I know he's going to want to dive and immerse himself into all kinds of stuff, handicapping these 8 games that are coming up in the Sweet 16. Hopefully, you're alive with many of them. I think in my one bracket pool that I'm in, I have at least an entry in every game. There's only one game where I have both teams. That reminds me of the old days of going to Miami and Dania Highlight here in South Florida, where there was no better feeling than having a lock situation where you had both of the players that were involved in a playoff point. So it didn't matter to you who won the thing. In this case, it might, because there are subsequent occurrences that may help you win the bracket, especially as the point totals and representations for each game escalate exponentially. And in the pool I'm in, I don't know if it's all the same, the scoring system, but 11 points for picking the championship. So you may have a lot riding on it. But that being said, I try not to be dismissive of the women's game. We're seeing blowout city there. It's been an atrocity. One of my theories about women's sports, and it's probably true that if you were looking as a male chauvinist pig to the women's sport that most represents and is most representative of the way the men play, you would have to say that it's women's professional tennis, where you're watching women. I mean, you could go right to the top of the list there. Arena Sabalenka, she is hitting howitzers, equivalent of anything that you would see pretty much. I mean, maybe not quite as fast, but proportionate to body mass and musculature and all of this other stuff. That women's game, of all the games that are played now, when you have basketball, women are playing softball versus baseball, and I don't know, you haven't really seen much growth in terms of women's football. They're playing soccer, but tennis on the women's side seems to most closely approximate what you would see from the men in terms of the competition. So I'm trying to see, I mean, the evolution of the women's game in college basketball, certainly in terms of the attention it gathers, was ratcheted up by Caitlin Clark. And this Juju Watkins is a hell of a player. So just my luck, as I try to embrace a little bit of the women's game last night, I'm flipping back and forth between some really intense tennis action with a young hotshot named João Fonseca, who is a Brazilian player, huge Brazilian contingent in Miami, and they are rocking this stadium on virtually every shot. I mean, they're going nuts, even when his opponent, De Manure, who's an excellent player, ranked, what is he? He's a top 10 player and seated, I think, very highly in the tournament. And if he had a fault on his first serve, the crowd is erupting. It was amazing, the atmosphere there. But they're in a break, a changeover. I flip over to the women's game that was on ESPN. It's Juju Watkins and USC. I like her game, and I wanted to catch a little of that, even though it was another bludgeoning, a clubbing of Seals type of blowout early on. And I happened to catch the one play where Juju Watkins is on a little bit of a break. She's kind of going 1-on-2. She tries, like she was Bill Shoemaker, to split two horses and go in for the layup. You're thinking she's probably going to make the basket in some spectacular play. And the next thing you know, she's down on the ground, writhing in agony, torn ACL, out for the season. So you hate to see that happen to anybody, unless you're a Philadelphia sports fan and it's Michael Irvin and he happens to be laying on the logo there in midfield and needing assistance to get off. But that was a really unfortunate blow last night. And I just happened to tune in time to catch that. Speaking of catching somebody, we're going to catch Scotty M here. Before we do, let me tell you that Bet Online, I know you guys are betting your brains out right now. Bet Online, though, would be the place to go, the world's most trusted betting platform. You don't want to be calling some boiler room in Costa Rica. You don't know if you're going to get paid. They're your number one source for online betting in 2025, just like Scotty M is your number one source for information. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for sports betting. From every three-pointer to hat trick, Bet Online has you covered. Odds, stats, information, and more for every game, every play, every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. And it usually begins and ends with this gentleman. Well, we love it. We weren't able to connect with him last week, and it's good to have him on the show. Probably, I mean, without question, you can have your Stu Feiners and some of these other guys, But the best looking handicapper that we feature on the show, and that's no denigration of anybody else, but you can see it yourself, people, and make your own judgment, is Scotty M. And Scotty, how are you, my friend? Good to have you back on the program.
I'm doing great. How can I not do great with an introduction like that, Defo? Come on now.
Well deserved, my friend. And I know that you, you talk about doing a deep dive. I'm sure you and your crew and all of the people that do the research for you as you guys put out your selections for your clients. What was it, a 24-hour? Were you pulling all-nighters getting ready for the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament? How did you approach the whole thing, and what did you think about the results so far?
It's been a really good tournament, actually, for us. We've been very consistent on our selections, and we put in a lot of time. I mean, we focus on this tournament weeks ahead of time to when it comes in for March Madness. So we really put that extra effort into it. Not that we don't try to put the effort in every single day, but the tournament is it's just a great time of the year. I mean, the books love it. The sports books are packed in Vegas. I mean, I hear it was jammed out there from some people that I speak to that were out there last week. I mean, just an exciting time of the year. You got a lot of stuff going on all day, all night, and the gamblers love it. Let's face it, because they're in action from 11:30, 12 o'clock in the in the morning, afternoon, whatever you want to call it, until midnight. So they got all day to watch these games and focus in on them. It's for me probably one of the best times of the year, other than college football bowl game season.
That's fantastic. And whether you're getting buried or you're profiting from what happened in the early going, uh, very, very enjoyable. I didn't watch a ton of college basketball during the regular season, so I had a relatively uninformed opinion. Your tendency always when you're picking brackets is to go with the higher seeds. We did have a couple of suggestions on this show and others about possible upsets, but I don't know that anybody was overwhelmingly embracing Scotty M, any of the so-called Cinderellas making it to the Final Four, and ultimately we didn't see that. The chalk players usually being carried out of these casinos in body bags at this time of the year so far are holding up pretty well.
Yeah, well, I called it a very chalky tournament right from the beginning. I thought the number one seeds were going to be very, very tough to beat. I just thought they were that much better at a different level than anything from three down. I thought anything from three down was beatable. I mean, and a lot of that is true, but you still see some fours in there. You see Ole Miss at a six seed who's been playing excellent. BYU winning a couple of great games, keep advancing, playing Alabama this week. Just the number one seeds to me, you're gonna have to play your A++ game to beat a team like Duke, Houston, even Auburn. I mean, is coming back again. They went through that little tailspin where they lost to. I think they won two out of the last seven or something like that. After starting out a house of fire. So the number one seeds, I feel, are absolutely, it's chalky to say the least. I mean, the only number two seed out of the tournament, which I was surprised. Not that I was surprised, because I actually had Arkansas in that game plus the 6.5 points against St. John's. I thought they'd give them a good battle in that game, and they did actually. They beat them, but the only number two seed out. So you got four number ones left, three number twos left, and it looks very chalky, Defo, to say the least.
Two recipes for disaster when it came to St. John's, and it was pointed out to us by several people, including the great Jim Larinaga, who joined us on a couple of programs prior to the tournament getting underway. Former coach at University of Miami was his last gig, and he was actively coaching until this year when he finally just threw in a towel after what turned out to be an horrendous season, and citing some of this change with NIL and some of the other things that are going on in college sports right now is the reason that he just didn't feel like he was the asset that he usually is. But he had taken two teams to Final Fours, had great insight, and he said, look, as well as St. John's plays defense, they are bricklayers from three-point land and boulder layers from the foul line.
Yeah.
And you have to think that at some point, free throw shooting is going to be significant. I mean, holy Derek Coleman just asked Jimmy Boeheim,
Yeah.
who had this game in the bag, if Coleman converts a couple of free throws against Indiana going back to, 87?
Yeah.
And we've seen this in a tournament before. So you're looking at that and thinking, wow, as great of a coach as Rick Pitino is, if they're slightly colder than usual, which already was bordering on, living winters in Greenland, which we all may be doing pretty soon. that was not a forbearer for success for St. John's. Who were you among people because he's so popular and a lot of ex New Yorkers here in South Florida where we live? We're saying, oh yeah, get all over St. John's at 25 to 1. That looked like money that you were going to put up in smoke to me, and they didn't get out of the second round.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I like the way they were playing going into the tournament. They were playing dynamite. They were finding ways,
Yeah.
even with trailing, come back in the second half and turn it on and win easily. I felt that Rick Pitino would be coach of the year many, many weeks ago. I thought he had a shot for coach of the year. I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't after what just happened. But 30-win season for them, playing fantastic. 9, 10 games in a row they won. And, listen, they ran into a little buzzsaw. This Arkansas team's no slouch. Calipari knows what he's doing. He's a great coach, too, another Hall of Fame coach down the road. And they just, listen, when you don't make shots against a team that can make shots, it doesn't matter if you're number 2 versus number 10. At the end of the day, it's going to catch up with you. And it obviously caught up with them because Arkansas actually dominated that game through, pretty much from the start to the finish. So they just knocked them right out of the box, right out of, right from the beginning.
Shortest line I see of the games that are remaining, the Michigan State game. And that's somewhat unfortunate for me, Scotty M, because if Michigan State gets knocked out, and they had a hell of a challenge there from New Mexico. I love the quote from Tom Izzo when asked, hey, what happened to your defense in the second half? You guys really stepped it up. And was the reason that you were able to prevail. And he said, well, I mean, it should have been easy for us to do that because we played no defense in the first half, which was great. But they appear to be the most suspect, 3.5-point favorites. And I believe that's the shortest line coming in. So
That is.
general impression about the 8 games that are on tap here, Scotty. And then we'll get into some specific picks.
Well, I'll tell you, there's I think these number 1 seeds are going to be very, very tough. I mean, I think Duke is going to, do what they're doing best. They just keep finding ways to win. They're playing Arizona. The line was 9.5. It's dropped to 8.5. But I just think Duke, is the type of team offensively and defensively. Their defense can really turn it on. And Arizona's a run and gun type of team. But when you're facing a team like Duke, who can run and gun as well, and they have that type of defense, I think it's going to cause some turnovers for Arizona. So I'm thinking Duke's going to keep their winning ways going. That's a tough number, I know, because Arizona is playing extremely well. They came off a nice win. They fell behind, I think, 19-4 or something, 18-4
Yeah.
early against Oregon, which could have put them away. They could have took them out of the game a little bit. But they composed themselves so well that they actually led at the half. They came back from being down 18-4, took a lead to halftime. I think it was a 4 or 5-point lead at half, and they held on in the second half to win that game. It was a close game. But I like Duke. I think their engines are just too strong. I just see them. I picked them to get all the way to the end. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm not jumping off the what I thought at the beginning of the tournament. I think Duke is going to keep rolling on in this tournament, get to the Elite Eight, get to the Final Four, and probably get to the championship game on April 7th. So I'm leaning towards Duke in the game. The other couple of games are interesting because, you got some good matchups. You got Maryland and Florida. Maryland's playing extremely well. Gators had a tough game their last game. They're making the Gators as a number 1 seed, 6.5. I'm not going to kind of lean on that game. That's a tough number for me to go. And I think Arkansas is playing well enough to hang in there with Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a quiet number 3 seed. They're playing extremely well. They got a real good defense, and they can score on the offense. Same with Arkansas. I think Arkansas might run into a buzzsaw in this game, so I'd probably lean a little bit as a light play towards Texas Tech to cover that spread. I'd probably bring it down to 4.5 and jump on Texas Tech. Those are the 2 games I like for Thursday. I like Duke to continue their winning ways, and I think Texas Tech will finally knock Arkansas out of the tournament and cover that spread. But I bring it down to 4.5 on that line.
All right. And then the Friday slate, what sticks out to you?
Friday slate is an interesting one as well. I'll tell you, this is an interesting game. Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky playing real well right now. Tennessee, finding ways to do what they do best. I think Tennessee is going to win this game pretty handily. I got a vibe on this one. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the way they play. I think Tennessee is strong enough that they could shut Kentucky down and match up against them extremely well. So I think Tennessee moves on as a number 2 seed. They get to the Elite Eight. The line's 4.5. I'd probably adjust this line because it may move one way or another. I think it's going to go higher than lower. So I'm going to take Tennessee down to 3.5 in that game. And that's the game I like for Friday. I like Tennessee minus 3.5. I just see them playing right now well enough to beat a team like Kentucky's an type of team like similar to Purdue. They either show up big time or they could be flat. And I just got a funny feeling with that defense of Tennessee's and the way they're playing right now, they could shut them down and go on one of those runs where they go on a 10-0, 12-0 run, and that'll take Kentucky out of the game. So I like Tennessee in that matchup.
All right, so going with Tennessee, you like Duke, you like Texas Tech coming up over the first couple of days, and your Final Four. What does it look like?
Well, like I said, I love Duke right from the beginning. I said Duke would get to the championship. I thought they'd win it probably. I'm going to stick with Duke getting to the final game. Another one, I think it's going to be the Houston. I like Houston. I mean, I've liked them as well. They're a very strong, consistent team. They're winning like crazy. They just find ways to dominate games against teams, and they're covering the spreads. So I'm thinking it's going to be something like Duke and Houston, probably, or Auburn. It's going to be one of those three. I think the number 1 seeds are going to be tough to beat at the end of the day. So either Auburn and Houston are playing Duke.
All right, very good, Scotty M. And now, if people are looking for some suggestions, some leans, which way to go, where can they find your information?
Yeah, well, we got a lot of stuff going on right now. The NIT tournament has been a moneymaker. I don't know if you've been following the NIT.
No, I have not, and that's probably a big mistake for somebody that's trying to bury their bookie.
Yeah, well, I love dogs, and the other day, all 6 games that were played, I believe it was Sunday, 6-0 the underdogs. 5 out of the 6 won straight up. So it was a 6-0 dog day in the NIT. There's 2 games tonight. I absolutely love both these games. You got Chattanooga versus Bradley and North Texas versus Oklahoma State. I'm doing a special promo, and I've been hot on these. The last 2 on Saturday and Sunday, I went 3-0 on Saturday. For $9, I gave these games away. Any player could afford $9, and you get nice winning on top of it. We knocked that Saturday, went 3-0, came back on Sunday, hit 2 out of 3 for $9. So I'm going to keep the $9 policy going today. I love both these games: Chattanooga, Bradley, North Texas, Oklahoma State. If they want to get those games, this is a low price, way lower than I normally charge. Just trying to get the audience to get in on some good winning. They can come right to my Instagram, which is SM Sports Picks. Click on today's video, the video you see up. Click the link below it, and you can purchase this huge offer for $9 on these 2 big-time plays in the NIT tonight.
Scotty M looking good as always, and always giving a good account of yourself. We recommend you go ahead and follow Scotty M on that Instagram account there, and take advantage of a phenomenal offer there. $9, can you imagine? That might be the key to a treasure chest.
$9.
All you got to do is invest $9. Now, less than the cost of one drink. If you were going to get these kind of winning recommendations, and the guys at the bar there, would you not send them a drink? So that'd be the way to approach this thing with Scotty M.
Hey,
all right, yeah, go ahead.
I had a quick question. Have you been out to the tennis matches? My son went last night. He said it was wild out there. You were talking about the Brazilian young kid.
Oh, yeah, this is João Fonseca. I mean,
Right.
look, Miami has a large Brazilian and Latin contingent here, South American contingent. So you figured that this was going to get not necessarily just loud, but almost unruly.
Yeah.
But the kid, it was a bloodbath. That was a hell of a match. I mean, that yesterday, I think, out at the Miami Open, and tennis is a pretty good bet because you can usually see some trends and things and spot an upset here and there. And
There's been some huge upsets.
Been some big upsets there. But yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of that because it was actually they were in a changeover. I was watching that De Minaur and Fonseca match because I'm curious about this kid. Everybody's talking about him, and I've seen him. Pulled off a couple of upsets, I believe, at the Australian Open and kind of stamped himself as somebody to watch, especially this year. Crowds are nuts. I mean, Scotty M, did your son pretend he was Brazilian out there, or was he just there to eyeball the hot chicks?
I think he was. I think he was out there to do the second. Yeah. I don't think he. I think he went out. Well, he's gone a couple of times. He's actually likes the tennis a lot. Because my wife's a big time tennis player down where we live. She's the number one player on the team. So he's into the tennis and he's enjoying it. I'm actually going to get out there this week. I want to check it out one night this week. So I'm going to check out the action myself. I like tennis, especially when you have a couple of good matches. It gets exciting.
It's been great. I'm a huge fan of that particular event. Or spend a lot of time watching the tennis channel and all of the different tournaments that take place. And you can see some things there. I mean, if you're a handicapper and you're watching some trends, you can make a nice score. I remember when Rybakina was playing at Wimbledon the year that she won it. I was in Atlantic City and I saw one of her earlier matches, and I said, "Wow, this woman's really, got the goods to go ahead and win this tournament."
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was Wimbledon might have been the tournament where she won her first big Grand Slam, and now she's tailed off a little bit. So these players become suspect. The other guy that's become interesting to bet against is Carlos Alcaraz, who was making this
Right.
monument. I mean, just rocketed right
He
to the
was
top.
a huge favorite the other night, and he went down. He was like 4,000. I don't know, whatever it was, like 400 to 1, 40
Yeah,
to 1, 40 to 1, and he went down. So,
yeah,
yeah, you could bet.
absolutely. I mean, it's Buster Douglas type of odds you can get sometimes if you can spot the vulnerability and maybe find a guy that has a little bit of an outside chance. But no, that's been good stuff and definitely worth exploring if you're looking to make a couple of wagers. All right, we love you, Scotty M. Thanks so much. It was great catching up with you again. I'm glad you made your return, hopefully a triumphant one to the show here today. And we'll talk to you again next week. Good luck with all of your wagers.
All right, Defo. Appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
Okay, Scotty M, ladies and gentlemen, joining us here on Bury Your Bookie. Hopefully, you guys will find some success. You know what? I've been negligent here. Not to dive into some NIT games, which may be easier and more profitable than betting some of the NCAA games. But we've been so super uber focused on the NCAA tournament that you forget there's an opportunity out there virtually everywhere. And hopefully you guys are taking advantage of that. For the people at BetOnline, NoFilter.net, and of course, Greenlight Ventures, which has a big thing working with arbitrage. We're going to be exploring that a little bit. Where can you imagine developing a system where you cannot lose? This involves especially in-game betting where the odds are changing and you have to take advantage of it. But it's a fascinating thing that's out there. And you end up in a situation where you're going to make like 3 points on your money no matter what you do. But gamblers don't really care for that. We're fueled largely by self-sabotage. I don't know. Does that take all the fun out of it? But you still have to be very alert and on top of your game to be able to take advantage of it. But we'll get into that because Greenlight Ventures is all over this system of wagering, arbitrage, which some people might be familiar with if you're a sick, degenerate gambler. But like I said, I don't know why, but if there's a guaranteed profit, more than likely, if you're like me, you're either ignoring it or likely to shy away from it. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for being with us here. I'm Jeff DeForest, and go out there and bury your bookie.